What's up, people? This is it. The last day. Our last time on YouTube. You're gonna say goodbye to Hans, right? You're gonna say goodbye. No more. We're gonna be not on YouTube anymore, dude. Yeah. You know. Yeah, guest teacher today. Alright, people. What is going on out there? Oh, now he's crashing. Hey, don't unplug anything down there. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Ah! I look crazy. Nice. What is going on, people? On a fine Tuesday, the last week of the semester. Oops, that's the wrong class right there. Rest in peace to the stream. That is right. This is it. This is the end of the YouTube, and I think it has served us well. I think it has been real. It's been good. We've got a lot done on YouTube, and what's nice is, like, you know, all the classes have been recorded, right? So I can use these in you know, years down the road. If a kid ever misses foreign exchange, right? Hey, you know, just watch this little video, right? And, you know, same thing. So it'd be pretty nice. And what is going on? As always, nothing, you know, nothing really, right? Just kind of chilling out, hanging out, right? Okay, well, so here's the game plan for the week, people. This week, today is the last content day, like I've already stated already, right? The last time we're going to be on YouTube. We're going to learn about foreign exchange, right? Which is really going to be half of your Unit 5 test. So make sure you guys are paying attention today. Today's big time. Now, we'll do a little bit more practice with it tomorrow, but today is the day where you guys are going to get all the content in regards to foreign exchange. So you make sure you're on your game if you want to do well on that Unit 5 test. Tomorrow, like I said, I'll be at school. So we'll be in Google Meet the whole day, and then tomorrow, really, we're just gonna do problem set 5.4. That is pretty much it. So tomorrow will definitely be more of a chill day. If you don't get a lot of your problem set done today, you can do probably a lot of that tomorrow, and still have time to finish 5.4 before the end of the hour. Okay, so that's kind of the game plan tomorrow. You know, maybe other things you could do tomorrow is make sure your junior interviews is good, right? Make sure your EDP is good, right? Remember, all that stuff is due on Friday, 4 points, so make sure you get that done. And then Thursday will be a whole day on the Unit 5 test, right? The Unit 5 test will not be due until midnight on Friday, but I want to make sure to give you guys the full hour to complete that test. And then Friday will be the final exam. And some of you guys are like, Mr. Moore, you know, what's the final exam going to look like? If you've been paying attention, there is no need to study, people. Show up on Friday, prepare to answer a few short answer questions about AP macroeconomic concepts, and you should do pretty well in the final exam. Friday is also going to be a day other than the final exam. You know, that time period is going to be a day where, you know, if you don't have your interview done, make sure you do it on Friday. If you don't have your EDPs done, make sure you do it on Friday, because that is it. Everything needs to be turned in by Friday. Last announcement is the Unit 4 test was supposed to be due last night, but there is still a couple students have not taken that Unit 4 test. So I'm going to leave it open. I shouldn't, right? Incentives matter, and I'm incentivizing you not to follow directions, but I want you to take it. I really want you to take it, right? So I'm going to leave it open for the rest of today, right? So if you're one of those that needs to take that Unit 4 test, you have until today, and then tomorrow I'm closing it, right? And I'll have it closed for a day so you can see the answers for a day, and then on Thursday, I know you guys will be taking the Unit 5 test, but on Thursday I will reopen up the Unit 4 test retakes, and I'll close the other Unit 4 test so you can't see your answers on and stuff. All right, so that's kind of the game plan. Basically, it's just a lot of testing this week, right? We have a lot of stuff we just gotta get done to really wrap up the entire semester. So today is the one content learning day, and tomorrow's kind of just like a practice day. How many questions are going to be on the test? On the Unit 5 test, a little bit less than the other test. I think Unit 4 had 27 questions. I think the Unit 5 test would be like anywhere between like 17 and 20. I'm gonna have to look at it. Not a whole lot. And really, it's balance of payments and foreign exchange. You know, what we talked about last week on Thursday and Friday, and then what we're gonna do today, and then practice a little bit more tomorrow. All right, people. Your attendance in the chat, real quickly. is give me 2 emojis expressing your emotions. All right, give me 2 emojis expressing your emotions. How are you feeling today, people? So you can be creative with it. Isn't the Unit 5 test the final exam? No, they're going to be different. The Unit 5 test is going to be is different. Yep. The final exam will be different, but do not be stressing about the final exam, Samaya. I need all focus on the Unit 5 test. Everybody in here, all we got to do is focus on the Unit 5 test. The final exam is not going to be a multiple choice test, right? Like you guys think it will be, right? It's going to be a little bit more open-ended. A little bit more open-ended will be the final exam. Okay. Do we have to finish it within the hour? Good question, Evan. No, you do not. The Unit 5 test on Thursday, you do not have to finish by the end of the hour. Some of you guys might really finish the Unit 5 test, probably more so on Friday. The final exam will not take that long on Friday. Alex says, I don't even know what that means. People, I don't know what that means. What is like the, it's like a cloud? What is that? Scared, boom, death, and then star. I don't know. I shouldn't have asked this. I don't even know. I don't know how to speak emoji like you guys. Chilling, tired, nervous. Samai, you better not be nervous over there. Do not be nervous. Gabriel's happy. Yeah, because Evan did the same thing. I don't know what that means. Can you guys translate that for me? Sign. Oh, I gotcha. Emma's crying. No, Emma, stop crying. No. Megan's feeling crazy. Yeah, I don't get the transition to the other emoji. What does that mean? It's like a sword. Yeah, I don't know what that means. If any one of you guys wants to enlighten me. People, we gotta use all the scenes today. This is our last day on YouTube. We gotta use all the scenes today. You know? It's been a while. We got the spaceship. We got California. Good times. The beach house. I didn't really use the press conference that much. Because I'm usually asking you questions, not you asking me questions, right? What else we have? We got the movie theater. We did that before. We did the movie theater. News studio I haven't used a whole lot. Yeah. Well, let's do it. Alright, I gotta get the space heater like turned down. Oh, isn't that hot? It's crazy. It was supposed to be a sign emoji with the air of the sword. Just means that I want a sword. I don't even know what you guys are saying. I shouldn't ask that. Alright. Alright, people. Let's jump into it. Oh no. What the heck? Where did my PowerPoint go? Oh, it's because I uploaded it. I had to close it. The last PowerPoint, people, is today. Now, we're going to be using the document camera quite a bit, so we're going to have to be switching screens quite a bit here. But that's why we're on YouTube, people. It's quick. It's fast. It's efficient. All right, so foreign exchange, people, sometimes it's called Forex, right, for short, obviously. Foreign exchange is all about the price of another nation's currency, right? If you want to buy another nation's currency, it is the price that you pay for it, right? That's the idea of foreign exchange. That's the idea of an exchange rate, right? If you go to another country, in order to buy that country's goods or services, you have to buy those goods and services with that nation's currency. So generally, you have to buy that nation's currency with your own currency, and the price you pay is called the exchange rate, right? That's what foreign exchange is. The price you have to pay to buy another nation's currency, right? So anytime we're exporting or importing, and that can include, right, going to another country and buying things, right, tourism, you have to buy that good or service with that nation's currency, right? So when the U.S. sells cars to Mexico, Mexico buys those cars in U.S. dollars, right? When Mexico buys tractors from Canada, Mexico is going to pay for those in Canadian dollars. When Canada sells syrup to the U.S. is going to pay for those in Canadian dollars, right? Japan buys fireworks from Mexico, they're going to pay for those with, Mexican pesos, right? Every good or service purchased from another country has to be paid in, or paid in full, right, by that nation's currency. So That's what we're going to be looking at is if something happens in the world, right? There's a change to incomes, taste, interest rates, tariffs, incomes, right? Anything, right? What would happen to a nation's currency? Will it appreciate or depreciate relative to another nation's currency, right? So here's some cool currencies to kind of get us in the right mind here, right? Canada's got some pretty cool currency. I think all of their denominations are in different colors. They got a really cool like holographic sort of clear thing right here, which is pretty sweet, to reduce counterfeiting, right? A lot of these currencies have some crazy security features to reduce the amount of counterfeiters. That's Australia right there. Bermuda, it's a really, really pretty currency, I would say. China, really, really pretty. Egypt, I love these this color combination. Looks pretty cool. Ethiopia, Brazil, right? Brazil, Hong Kong, Israel, right? Pretty cool currencies. Latvia, that person looks really smart. We got New Zealand, rugged, right? New Zealand. We got Russia, people, snowboarder on the $100 or the 100 denomination. What currency is Russia? Is it ruble? Ruby? I don't know, I feel like that's not right. And then people, you know, the most widely used currency in the entire world, one of the best currencies, a currency that can never be counterfeited at all, a currency where, you know, which their people have the most faith and trust in. Some even call it a commodity money. You know, even though, you know, is the more dollar. Rupee is India, yeah. What is a ruble? What's the Russian currency? But anyway, the best currency in the world is obviously the more dollar. People, look how weird I used to look back in the day. What's going on over here? All right, moving on. Okay, so an exchange rate, again, when you guys see an exchange rate, I want you guys thinking the price you have to pay in order to buy the other nation's currency, right? So, ruble. Yeah, I knew it wasn't wrong, right? If Galen thinks it's ruble, it must be ruble. It has to be, okay? All right, so we examine the price of one currency in terms of the other currency. So, you know, if it's expressed like this, right? $3, what's loading? What is loading? If $3 is equal to 2 euros, right? What that really means is $1.50 is equal to 1 euro, right? Or 1 euro is equal to $1.50. It is the price you pay to get that other nation's currency. So the price of a euro is $1.50, or the price of 2 euros is $3, right? If you want to buy a euro, the price you pay is expressed in dollars, right? Dollars given up to acquire, you know, X amount of euros. That's what the exchange rate is. So sometimes you guys are going to get examples where you maybe have to reduce it in the lowest terms, right? Or it'll say in Bolivia, the price of an avocado is 4 pesos, right? The price of an avocado is 4 pesos. If the exchange rate is $2 for 1 peso, $2 for 1 peso, and the good costs 4 pesos, how many dollars is needed to buy the avocado, right? Well, if the avocado costs 4 pesos and $1 is equal to, or was it $2 is equal to 1 peso, then it would cost $8. It would take $8 to buy the avocado, right? Very good, Zoe. Very good. So sometimes you guys might get questions like that. I put a couple of those questions on the problem set. You convert it to lowest terms, or, you know, if this is the exchange rate, how many euros would it take to get, you know, $9, right? It would be, what, 6, right? Things like that. Or a price of a good or service is this, and here's the exchange rate. How much currency is needed to buy that good or service? You might get some cheese questions like that, all right? But really, we're going to be focused on currency appreciation, depreciation, right? What causes currency values to change? So let's say this happens, right? Let's say the exchange rate used to be $3 is the price that you would have to pay in order to get 2 euros. Now the price is $6 to get 2 euros. Would you say that the US dollar is appreciated or depreciated? Is this appreciation or depreciation of the US dollar? Has the US dollar gained value or lost value? If it went from $3 is what was needed to acquire 2 euros, now it's $6 is what is needed to get you 2 euros. The US dollar is said to have depreciated. Very good. Depreciation, loses value. Depreciate, becomes weaker, right? It requires more units of this nation's currency to get the same amount of units as it once could before of the other nation's currency. Becomes weaker. All right, now let's relate this back to the ADS model, right? This is what we did in Unit 3, and maybe it's been a while, but when a currency depreciates, remember that's always going to incentivize less imports. It's going to incentivize Americans, whose currency is now weaker, to not buy foreign goods, and specifically in this case, not buy European goods. They're going to buy their own American goods. When the currency depreciates, when the US dollar depreciates, aggregate demand for the United States would increase. You have to be able to go from here all the way to the ADS model, obviously. All right? Aggregate demand would increase. Why is that? Well, we're going to buy less European goods. We're going to buy more of our own goods. And we're talking about the ADS model, right? We're talking about the ADS model for the United States, the demand for U.S. goods. We're going to buy less European goods, thus we're going to buy more of our own goods. Aggregate demand for the U.S. would increase. Also, right, you can look at it from another perspective. Europeans, right, if our currency depreciates relative to the euro, that means the euro has appreciated relative to the dollar, right? It used to, cost €1 to get $1.50. Now it's €1 gets you $3, right? Europeans are going to buy more American goods. Again, more demand for American goods. Aggregate demand is going to increase in the ADS model. So, incomes will increase, unemployment will decrease, output will increase, price level will increase, right? Make sure you can go all the way to your ADS model, just a little review right there. When the currency depreciates, it's going to increase aggregate demand. It's actually going to be good for the economy in terms of unemployment and output, right? But it will cause, inflation to occur, but yeah, so that's the idea of depreciation, and that's what's going to happen on the ADS model. And that's what it looks like, right? It takes more dollars to get the same amount of euros. The dollar's now weaker. And if the dollar's weaker, it's going to incentivize Americans to buy less foreign goods and foreigners to buy more American goods. Aggregate demand for the U.S. would increase, okay? This is what appreciation would therefore look like, right? It took $3 to get you 2 euros. Now it only costs $1 to get you 2 euros, right? The dollar is stronger. It takes less units of dollars to get the same amount of euros as once before. The dollar has appreciated. It has gained value relative to the euro. So again, what's going to happen here? What's the ramifications of this, right? Well, the Americans are going to buy more European goods because now their money can go further. They have more purchasing power, if prices are constant, right? In buying British goods or European goods, sorry, not just Great Britain, like European, right? And not even British goods because they use the pound. They don't even use euros, right? That's the idea of appreciating. It takes less dollars to get the same amount of euros, or it takes more euros to get the same amount of dollars. The currency's stronger. So again, what's going to happen is, we're going to buy more foreign goods, and foreigners are going to buy less of our goods. Aggregate demand in the United States would decrease. The demand for U.S. goods would be less if the U.S. dollar appreciates, because we're not going to buy our own goods as much, and foreigners are definitely not going to want to buy our goods either, Europeans in this case. So aggregate demand would decrease when the currency appreciates. You absolutely have to know that as well. All right, so let's get to the graph, people. Let's get to the graph. It's going to be supply and demand as you know it. Nothing's crazy. We're not going to really talk about the curves or anything, but I want to show you how it works. Now, before we get to the graphs, I want you to visualize foreign exchange in this way, in this line of thinking. I think it's a lot easier way to think about foreign exchange, and I feel like it's been proven to help students understand foreign exchange and ultimately, right, get the questions right about foreign exchange. I want you to imagine the foreign exchange market as a huge table with a bunch of currency on it, right? Imagine like a foreign exchange booth, right? You know how like you go to Germany and you get off the plane and you obviously need euros, right? So you go up to this foreign exchange booth and you convert your dollars into euros, right? I want you to think about the foreign exchange market like a foreign exchange booth or like a table where all the currencies are available there, and you can buy a nation's currency. But when you buy a nation's currency, you must supply your own currency to it, all right? So let me take you to that table, all right? Because I got a table, and I got some foreign exchange here. All right? These are really, that's old German dollars from like World War II. We got, we're going to use the yuan. We're going to buy Korean currency. And then, all right, so we're going to buy this one, $5,000 yuan. Korea. Okay. All right. So my first question I have for you guys is, as an American, right? As an American, do Americans demand dollars? And what I mean by demand, right? What is demand always meant in this class, right? Demand means the willingness and ability to buy. The willingness and ability to buy. Do Americans buy U.S. dollars? Do we purchase American dollars? Are we willing and able to buy U.S. dollars typically as Americans? Like, do you buy American dollars? Do you convert a currency and buy American dollars? Do you guys do that? No. The answer is no, right? A nation doesn't demand their own currency, right? Now, obviously, like we demand money, right? Quantity demanded of money, right? But like we don't buy our own currency unless you're traveling back, right? And like you're visiting a country, then you come back, and yeah, you might have to buy U.S. dollars back. But yeah, we don't demand American dollars. We don't buy American dollars as Americans. Okay, so remember that, right? A country doesn't demand their own currency. Foreigners demand another nation's currency. All right. Okay. So with that being said, let's say Korea is set to host the next Olympics. I don't know if it's Korea or Japan, but like, let's just imagine another world, right? Let's say Korea is going to host the Olympics. Okay, that's our shifter. That's our determinant. That's what's going to change in the world, right? And let's see what's going to happen to currency and appreciation and depreciation between the Korean currency and the U.S. currency. So yeah, Japan's hosting the Olympics. I knew that. All right, but let's say Korea is hosting the Olympics or the World Cup or whatever, right? They're doing something in their country that's going to incentivize people to buy more Korean goods. In this case, right, physically travel to Korea to buy those Korean goods and services, right? So as an American, if I'm going to Korea, right, I'm going to go to the Olympics, right? I want to see the Olympics in Korea. I can't buy goods and services in Korea without the Korean won. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but the won, right? The won, right? So if I'm going to Korea, I need wons. I demand wons. In this case, I demand more wons. So here's what happens, right? If I want wons, and I hope you guys can see why I would have an increase in demand for wons, right? If I'm traveling there, I'm going to need more of their currency than I otherwise, demanded beforehand. So I'm going to demand more won, right? So now if I take the won out of the table, or off the table, I take the won out of the foreign exchange booth, what happens to the quantity of wons now? In other words, is the won now more scarce or less scarce? Is the won more scarce or less scarce, right? I demanded it, I took it off the table, right? Is the won more or less scarce? In other words, is it more or less valuable, right? Because what would happen to the value of the won if there's less wons here, right? If people go to this foreign exchange booth and they're like, hey, I want some wons, and the guy's like, yeah, I don't have a lot of wons, you have to pay a little bit more for that, right? The value of the won would increase. I hope you guys can see that. When someone demands a nation's currency, there's going to be less of that currency available. That currency is going to increase in value. So in this case right here, if I demanded more won, the won is going to appreciate, and it's going to gain value. That's what appreciation means, right? Get stronger, gain value. Now here's the thing though, right? Do people just buy currency for free, right? If I demand more won, what must I supply? If I demand more won, what must I supply? As an American, if I travel to Korea and I want their currency, I demand their currency, what must I supply? What do I need to supply in order to get their currency? What do I pay? What do I give? Right? U.S. dollars. Very good. U.S. dollars, right? So if I demand won, right, the won's going to appreciate and get more valuable, right, because it's more scarce. In order to demand more currency, I must supply more of my currency. So now what's going to happen to the U.S. dollar? There's more dollars on the table. That dollar is going to depreciate. It's going to get less valuable. There's more dollars available, right? The dollars are going to become cheaper, right? The person's like, hey, I got a lot of dollars. You guys want dollars? Right? I got tons of them. I'll give you a bargain. I'll give you a lower price for it. In other words, you get to give up less of your currency to get the U.S. dollars. So that's the idea. If you demand another nation's currency, you must supply your own currency. And then in terms of identifying what happens to that currency, does it appreciate or depreciate? Well, is there more or less of it in the foreign exchange market, right? Able to be purchased by foreigners, right? More dollars are available, depreciate, right? Dollars are now less valuable. More valuable. less valuable because there's more of them. Jeez. So therefore, the U.S. dollar will depreciate. The yuan is not on here, right? It's less easy to get, more scarce. So therefore, it's going to gain value. That's the idea. That is the idea. That's my very simplified way of thinking about the foreign exchange market. And I think it usually works for the most part. All right, so we're going to go back to the document camera here in a second, but oops, not that. So again, that's how I want you to think about it. If you demand a currency, you must supply your own currency, and no country demands their own currency. They demand other, foreign currency. Okay, so that's what we said, right? This is the foreign exchange market, just like a product market. You can't take things without paying. If you demand a currency, you must supply your own currency. All right, so when we draw the foreign exchange market, we're generally going to draw a side-by-side graph, right? Because a currency can't just appreciate or depreciate relative to all currencies. It's all about, does it appreciate or depreciate relative to another currency? So usually we look at two different currencies when we're in the foreign exchange market. So in this case, let's look at dollars and euros. But first, I want to talk about the labeling, right? Because it's easy to draw supply upwards, demand downwards, right? Just like any other graph that we learned about in this class. But we need to know how to label this graph correctly, right? So let me take it back. Let's go back to here, right? So remember, it's always other goes over. That's what you need to remember. If you're planning on taking the AP test in May, so therefore you're planning on drawing graphs on the AP test, you need to know how to label this graph. So, right, if we're labeling US dollars, right, I'm going to put the euro, it looks like a euro, right, divided by dollars. And why do I do that, right? Well, if we move up here, right, that is currency appreciation, right? The price of acquiring a US dollar increases. It requires more euros to get more US dollars. That's appreciation. So we need to label it other goes over. Think about maybe at equilibrium, it's a 1-to-1 ratio, right? And if our currency appreciates, I don't know, maybe people demand more US dollars, right? This number has to increase, right, along the vertical. So maybe like 2/1. That's currency appreciation. Now it takes 2 euros to get $1, and it used to take 1 euro to get $1, right? Currency depreciation would be like moving down the graph. And this number obviously would have to be less than 1, so maybe like 0.5/1, right? A half. It takes a half a euro to get $1, right? That's the dollar depreciating. It takes less euros to get the same amount of dollars as it once could before. So just make sure you always remember to label your graph other goes over. The other currency goes over. If we're graphing US dollars, it's euro over dollar. Okay? All right. Back into it. Okay? All right, so let's do a practice little shifter here first, and then I'll go over the formal 4 shifters of foreign exchange, and then we'll obviously practice it on the problem set. So we got dollars, we got euros. So it says, what happens if Europeans prefer vacationing in the United States? So for whatever reason, right? Maybe the U.S. is hosting the Olympics, or the U.S. is having like a huge music festival, or there's a new Disney World in New York. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But like something happened where it's going to cause Europeans to want to come to the U.S. more. So if Europeans come to the U.S. more, they're going to buy more U.S. goods and services. If Europeans need to buy more U.S. goods and services, what must they acquire in order to buy those U.S. goods and services? They're going to need more dollars. They're going to demand more U.S. dollars. Europeans demand dollars. And in this case, right, given this scenario, they're going to demand more U.S. dollars. If they're coming over to the U.S. and they're going to vacation in the U.S., right, they're going to stay in the U.S., they're going to need dollars in order to buy things, right, book their hotel, buy food, etc. In order to buy those goods, they're going to need more dollars to make those transactions. So the demand for dollar will increase. And then we know that if we move up the vertical here, right, that is currency appreciation. It's going to require more euros to get the same amount of dollars, currency appreciation. So if the US dollar appreciates and we do it right, that means the euro has to depreciate, right? The euro can't appreciate relative to the dollar and the dollar appreciate relative to the euro. They can't both get stronger relative to one another, right? So that's your double check. If you move the same direction on both graphs, right, you did something wrong. So we need to move down this graph over here. But let's remember the simplified table, right? If you demand more dollars, right, you take more dollars off the table. If you demand more, you must supply more. right? There's going to be more euros available in the foreign exchange market, right? A foreign exchange booth, right? There's going to be more euros available, right? Euros are going to be less scarce, and that is depreciation. The supply of euros will increase because, Europeans, in order to demand more dollars, they must supply their euros. And again, double check it, right? Did one currency go up and one currency go down? Yes, the dollar will appreciate if this happens, and the euro will depreciate if this happens. That is how you do it. That is how you do it, right? Just, demand more, supply more, demand less, supply less, perhaps. Change demand in one, supply in the other, and then double check it. Did one currency appreciate and did one currency depreciate? Right? And that's how you do it. That's pretty much how you do the foreign exchange market. All right. So let's do the four shifters, and obviously I'll show you what it would look like on each of the graphs for each of the four shifters, and then we'll obviously rep this today and tomorrow. And I think over 2 days you should be pretty good at this stuff. Okay. So the first shifter, the first determinant of foreign exchange is changes in taste, right? Which usually is a shifter for most graphs, right? Just taste, preferences, popularity, kind of like the last one you saw, right? Just Europeans, prefer to come to the U.S., right? Whatever it is, right? Or, Korea hosts the Olympics, right? Just something that happens where foreigners are going to want to go to another country more than they otherwise were going there, okay? So, yeah, if British tourists flock to the U.S., we already did this one, the demand for the dollar would increase, and if we demand more, we must supply more. Alternatively, right, maybe the British, for whatever reason, don't want to come to the U.S. any longer, right? Maybe because, COVID, actually, Great Britain's really, really suffering from COVID as well, but, whatever reason, right, the British, don't want to come to the U.S. any longer. Something happens where, they don't want to come here, right? Well, in that case, right, they would demand less dollars, and the dollar would depreciate, and if we demand less, they will supply less, right? So, if someone doesn't want to go to the country anymore, people go to the country less frequently, demand for that currency will decrease, thus the supply of the other nation's currency would also decrease. So the dollar would depreciate and the pound would appreciate. Again, if something happened in the World War, British were, discouraged from coming to the U.S., okay? So that one, just changes in taste, popularity, preferences, right? In order to go to that country, they're going to need more of that currency. So change demand, accordingly. Okay, number 2 is changes in relative incomes, right? If incomes go up in one country, it doesn't really change in another country, right? Whichever country has more incomes, they're going to buy more goods, domestically and abroad, okay? Let's get to Galen's question before we do this one. So in the current case, no one wants to go anywhere, so it kind of balances out, yeah. Actually, I think right now, it just changed a couple days ago, but I don't think the British can come to here, and I think we can go to the UK, but the people in the UK can't come here, and that's just because I'm friends with Mr. Bondra. Mr. Bondra, I know, can go to Great Britain, but his girlfriend, the person who's seeing, can't come to the US, right? So in that case, right, that would cause the dollar to depreciate, right? But yeah, it kind of all depends, right? Yeah, there's not a lot of travel going on right now, that's for sure, and buying of foreign goods. All right, number 2, changes in relative incomes, right? So this is one of those questions that you're going to see a lot of, and the reason you're going to see a lot of it is because if they can ever change the ADS model, you make a change to the ADS model, right? And the follow-up question is a question that changes whenever you change the ADS model, right? Incomes, price level, things like that. You're going to see this question a little bit more frequently. All right. So whenever incomes change in a country, right, that country's going to buy more goods. When incomes go up, generally most goods are normal goods, so we're going to buy more things. So let's say incomes go up in the U.S., right? Aggregate demand increases, maybe aggregate supply increases. However you change your ADS model, right, output has increased, unemployment has fallen, so therefore incomes go up, right? So the follow-up question is going to say, if U.S. incomes increase, right, or based on whatever you did to your ADS model, whatever you did to incomes, U.S. incomes increase, what would happen in the foreign exchange market? Well, again, Americans are going to buy more goods. We're going to buy more domestic goods for sure, but Americans buying American goods have nothing to do with this, right? You're not going to demand our own currency in order to buy more of our own goods. Americans will buy more domestic goods, but we're also going to buy more foreign goods. We're going to buy more goods everywhere. So if U.S. incomes go up in the U.S., Americans are going to buy more British goods. Again, they're going to buy more U.S. goods too, right? They're going to buy more goods everywhere, but they're going to buy more British goods as well. So more incomes, more buying, right? More demand. In order to buy more British goods, we're going to need British pounds in order to buy those British goods. So the demand for pound would increase, and if we demand more, we must supply more. Remember that, right? So the supply of the US dollar would increase. Okay, so demand increase, supply increase, the pound would appreciate and the dollar would depreciate. Again, alternatively, right, if incomes go down in the US, Americans are going to buy less domestic goods. They're also going to buy less foreign goods. If they buy less foreign goods, they're going to buy less British goods, right? That's what it means, right? So therefore, they're going to buy less British pounds. So the demand for the pound would go down, the pound would depreciate, and if demand decreases, supply would decrease, the dollar would appreciate. Always do the double check at the end and make sure you didn't move the same direction with dollars and pounds, right? It's always increase, or decrease, but like in terms of the vertical, the pound has appreciated, the dollar has depreciated, we did it right. They both have not appreciated relative to one another. So yeah, incomes, right? Just more buying power. You're going to buy more foreign goods. And if you buy more foreign goods, you're going to need more foreign currency in order to do so. I made sure to put this on here. Sometimes the shifter is the U.S. has a recession. What happens? Right? That's all it is. Remember, when you see the word recession, you should be visualizing high unemployment. If the U.S. has a recession, that means we're not producing a whole lot, so unemployment must be very high. And if unemployment goes up, right, that means that country has experienced a decrease in incomes. So if U.S. has a recession, we have less income. That's what I just did, right? Demand would decrease for the pound. Supply would decrease for the dollar, right? So the dollar would appreciate and the pound would depreciate. Okay, if we have less incomes in a recession. All right, so that's that one, right? Those are the first two. Now the next two are technically double shifters. All right, the next two I give you, there really is a double shift that you're going to see on your graph. Now, when you do supply and demand questions on the AP test, right, just pick demand in one and supply in the other. All right, but sometimes they might specifically ask you about supply or demand in one of the graphs. And in order to answer that question, you're going to have to be able to think about it from two different perspectives. The perspective from Great Britain and the perspective from Americans. Okay? So let me show you what I'm talking about here. The first shifter is changes in price level, right? Which obviously is going to be a question you're going to see a lot of. Again, a question that could follow up any sort of change to the ADS model or Phillips curve or whatever, right? Change the price level. Inflation. So let's say prices go up in the U.S. The U.S. experiences inflation. Prices are higher in the U.S. relative to Great Britain. Prices have not changed in Great Britain, and they have risen in the U.S. Okay, so what's going to happen here? Well, let's think about it from the American perspective, right? Let's think about it from the American perspective first. Probably like most of us probably would do just naturally. Think about it from the American perspective. If I live in the U.S. and prices are higher in the U.S., I'm probably going to be discouraged from buying American goods, and I'm going to seek the cheaper good, right? I'm going to try to find the cheaper substitute good, and if U.S. prices are higher, in the U.S. than they are in Great Britain, I'm probably going to buy more British goods. I'm going to buy the cheaper good, the cheaper alternative, the cheaper substitute good. So if U.S. prices go up, as an American, I'm going to demand more British goods, and if I demand more British goods, I'm going to need more pounds in order to buy those British goods, so the demand for the pound will increase, and if I demand more, I must supply more, right? I'm going to supply more U.S. dollars. So if U.S. prices go up, U.S. has inflation, the pound will appreciate, and the dollar will depreciate. Okay? That's one way to do it. Now, what if this happens, though? You're going to see it on problem set 5.4 tomorrow. What if it says, U.S. prices increase, the U.S. experiences inflation relative to Great Britain. What happens with the supply of pounds? And you're like, what? I just thought about the question. I didn't change the supply for pounds. That means you need to think about it from a different perspective. You need to think about it maybe from the British perspective instead, right? If you live in Great Britain and you see that U.S. prices have gone up, right, you, as a British person, right, you're going to buy less American goods. So the demand... Oops, let me get rid of this. The demand for the dollar will decrease, right? Why would you want to buy a more expensive good? Why would you want to buy the U.S. good if it's more expensive than your own good? So you're going to buy less American goods. The demand for the dollar would decrease. And if you demand less dollars, you're going to supply less pounds. So the answer would be supply for pounds would decrease. See what I did there? I just thought about it from the other nation's perspective, right? What would they do? First, I was like, what would Americans do? What would the British do, right? So really, right, technically it's a double shifter. Technically, demand would increase for the pound. Simultaneously, right, supply would decrease for the pound. Demand would decrease for the dollar. Simultaneously, the supply would increase for the US dollar. It doesn't matter though, right? Whichever way you thought about it and drew it up, right, the pound would appreciate and the US dollar would depreciate. So generally, right, you just pick one and then answer the question appreciation, depreciation, because that's really what they're going to be asking for. But sometimes they might ask you specifically what happens to this demand curve or supply curve. So you might have to think about it in perspective that you normally maybe don't think about it in, right? Same thing with interest rates, right? So interest rates, I want you to, just like we did with balance of payments, a change to interest rates, I want you to think about a change to the buying and the buying of bonds, right? You know, where's the most attractive place to buy a bond? When we buy bonds, people, we want to buy bonds at high interest rates. We want to take out loans at low interest rates, right? But when we buy bonds, we want high interest rates because when we buy bonds, I'm talking about like we as in people, right? When I buy a bond from the government, right? Actually, I have a bond here. I found some bonds. All right, I gotta make sure it's far enough away from the camera where you can't read it, but like, this is a bond, people. It's a U.S. bond right there, right? So when I buy a bond from the government, right, I get the bond. I'm lending them money, $100, right? Plus, so I'm going to get the $100 back plus interest. When you buy a bond, you're a lender, and lenders want high interest rates. So when I buy a bond, right, I'm going to give the government money, and then ultimately I'm going to get paid back when I sell the bond back and when the government buys it back from me. When we buy bonds, we want high interest rates, okay? So let's say interest rates go up in the U.S. U.S. interest rates are higher in the U.S. than they are in Great Britain, right? Where's the most attractive place to buy a bond? Where's the inflow going to be, right? Where's money going to flow into? In this case, it's going to be the U.S., right? The U.S. is going to be, de-incentivized from buying British bonds, and the British are going to be incentivized to buy American bonds, right? We're going to want to buy the highest rate of return, the most money back for lending money to a government, right? From buying their bonds. So what's going to happen is in order to buy American bonds, which everyone wants now because we have higher interest rates, in order to buy an American bond, the British are going to need more U.S. dollars in order to buy those American bonds. The demand for the dollar would increase, and if we demand more, we must supply more. That's the key, right? That's the idea. So the U.S. dollar will appreciate and the pound will depreciate. But again, what if it says, what happens to the supply of U.S. dollars if this happens? Think about it from a different perspective, right? As an American, am I going to want to buy more or less British bonds, right? I'm going to want to buy less British bonds. Why would I want to buy a British bond at a low interest rate when I can buy an American bond at a higher interest rate, right? So I'm going to buy less British bonds. If I'm buying less British bonds, I'm going to buy less of their currency. I'm going to demand less pounds. And if I demand less pounds, I'm going to supply less U.S. dollars. But notice, right, a decrease in demand will also cause the currency to go down, and a decrease in supply would also cause the currency to appreciate, right? So again, whichever perspective you elect to take on it, and you have sound economic thought, right, you're going to get the question right? Really, most questions, all it's concerned about is, does this currency appreciate or does this currency depreciate? But again, sometimes you have to do it from a different perspective. Okay. So again, right, to review, right, if you demand more currency in another country, right, you must supply more of your currency. You're never going to change demand here and then change demand over here, okay, even if it's a double shifter, right? Pick one, right? Demand more, supply more, or demand less, supply less. But see how currency has to depreciate and the other currency has to appreciate, right? Or maybe supply more here. If we supply more here, we must demand more over here. Appreciate and depreciate. Okay? So that is the concept. Supply less, demand less. Appreciate for the yen, depreciate for the US dollar. Alrighty. And with that, people, that is it for YouTube. We have officially made it. The entire semester, right, was predominantly taught, online, which, is not what we wanted, but I think YouTube has served us well. Thank you, YouTube, for all that you've done. Say goodbye to YouTube, people. I will see you guys one last time. Well, I'll see you in Google Meet for the rest of the week, but one last time, we're going to move into Google Meet, people. Sadness. Sadness.